Charles, and welcome to me trying to figure out how this UI works. Wait a second.
There it is. I was just hiding. I was hiding my little sword because I've actually been enjoying being able to see like the modding decisions of the auto modder because I think that it's interesting. One of the things that I do think is interesting is that people will often assume that the auto modder is wrong, and it's not necessarily. Like, oftentimes it's like, oh yeah, I see why they would do that. And I think that that's actually interesting and creates interesting and engaging conversations if I can catch it and see what the auto modder is picking up, because it doesn't tell the person who's sending the message what the auto modder picked up on. Anyway, so I just want to make sure that I have my mod view up so that I can see it. Hey, Amber Witcher. Hey, Asher Kitty. Did I already say hi to Asher? I don't remember. Hi to everyone who's in here. And congrats. I don't know what Wizards and Warriors is. I'll have to look and see what that is later. And congrats on getting Wizardry 8. Give me 1 second. Sorry that I'm late. You can blame Barotrauma. Because I was playing Barotrauma with some people until close to midnight. And then I was like, my alarm went off, and I woke up, and I was like, oh, hey, oh, my wonderful wife, you're heading off to work. That's so nice. Okay. Fell back asleep, woke up when my second alarm went off, which is, it's time to start streaming. I'm like, wait, no, that's not right. I'm supposed to wake up before this alarm hits. I'm supposed to wake up earlier than this. So, let's see. Just give me a second. Doing good here. The Barotrauma has been going very fun. Been very enjoyable. It's so nice to get into a game that like you figure that you will enjoy, but you have like not rules. You have like physical symptoms when you play the game, and being able to fix the physical symptoms so that you can just dig into it and not deal with that bullshit. Delightful. I love that. Okay, we're patching right now. I don't know if I need to patch or not. The unfortunate thing with the direct link that they have now is that I can't see when it was last updated unless I go through the way that I did the previous way, so this might be a waste of effort. But generally they patch often enough that it's probably more reasonable to just hit the patch anyway. Okay, so what am I doing? This window is not needed right now. We can ignore you, I believe. Yeah, we can ignore you for now. This window is important. Okay, well, that's in the changelog, right? But the changelog doesn't have every update in it. The changelog only has the updates that are worth mentioning, right? Because like there were updates that have happened after the Resistance Shonen Grain, I think. But it's like little fiddly bits of like, oh, this thing isn't working quite how intended, I assume. I don't... This is the window that should be up. Sorry, I have too many windows open, and I'm too incoherent to understand them. Live scene. Do I have more windows than I usually do? No. I have the same number of windows that I have every time. I'm just more dopey this morning than I am usually. I blame the fact that I'm well rested. You see, the problem is that I decided to sleep in, and by deciding to sleep in, I became well rested, and when I become well rested, I am incoherent and have no idea what the hell is happening. We'll go with that. All right. So when last we left off, we were fighting up in the arena. We had done some sorting of our gear, apparently. I know this because there's a bunch of these things. Let's see. Let's see. You're right, and I will say I can now. I can actually close my windows now. I can close the windows, and I have closed the windows. The only windows that I have are opening into the internet. It took me a second to get that, Astro Kitty, because I was thinking, I mean, the extra processing will definitely lead to like the computer generating a bit more heat. I don't know that that's going to necessarily have a meaningful impact on the energy efficiency. Like the computer has a meaningful efficiency impact on the air conditioning. And then I'm like, oh wait, Windows. Yes. I see you. I see you. Okay. Let's see here. I get you. Let's see. Yep. I fell asleep somewhere around midnight. It's fine. Somewhere around there. Some time period that was very appropriate. I don't know how my wife does it. Like we were playing Barotrauma, and around like 9:50, I like asked my wife like, "Oh, are we like what time do you want to go to bed?" And she's like, stone cold like 11:30, and I was like, 11:30? Isn't it Tuesday? It's Tuesday. What do you mean 11:30? Oh, okay. And she's like, yeah, it's like a not a like super crazy day tomorrow, and like she gets up at like 5:45. Madness, true madness. I'm becoming so like old and normie these days. It turns out that she's absorbing my insomnia energy from like 2012, and I'm absorbing her normal people sleep scheduling from the rest of time. That's what's happening. That's pretty rough. One thing that's convenient for me, one thing that's very convenient about living with other people, if you respect the people that you live with, and they're, working with you as a team, and this, that, or the other thing, one of the things that's great about it is the fact that, like, your house is never going to be that crazy, because, like, one thing that I found interesting when I started living with my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, but when we started living together, one of the things I found interesting is that, like, the overlap in terms of what the two of us consider to be an unacceptable versus acceptable mess is different, not in the sense of, like, higher or lower standards, it's just different standards, where it's like, okay, for this thing, I have way more rigid standards than the person that I'm living with. And in this other way, they have way more rigid standards than me. So what ends up happening is that if everyone's standards are being met, and you're not like just like compromising on the standards, if you're not compromising the standards and you're instead achieving both standards at the same time, what you end up with is this was supposed to be a very, very side tangent. It was not meant to be this long, sorry. This is meant to be like 2 sentences. But because of the fact that the standards are different, you end up with this interesting situation where the standards throughout the whole house just kind of increase because you're meeting the standard, the higher of the 2 standards at any given time. And I think that's pretty cool. I think it's very cool. So the solution to a messy house is get roommates, but only if they're really good roommates, who you respect and who respect you. That's look, sometimes advice is actionable, and sometimes it's like, this isn't even, I don't think this qualifies as advice, actually. Get roommates, but only get good roommates is incredibly actionable, realistic advice. And the reason I say roommates is because I don't think that there's anything I don't think there's anything particular about, like... I don't think there's too much that's particular about living with a romantic partner that is different from living with anybody else. I think that living with pretty much anybody has the same, like, optimal, you know, stuff to it. Yeah, landlords are bad, actually. Speaking as someone who has been a landlord, I can tell you, they're bad, actually. I would say that the worst I have ever been as a human being was when I was acting as a landlord. Like, the worst behavior I have ever engaged in my life was me being a landlord. Not because of something intrinsic to being a landlord where it's like, oh no, you know, I have an ideological objection. No, like, literally, like, interpersonally, my worst interpersonal behavior was in my capacity as a landlord. When, like, when a friend was living with me for a little while. So. Oh yeah, we got the light elemental people who... Wait, am I immune? I'm not immune. Why am I not immune? Shouldn't you be using light spells? What's wrong with you? Okay. So, we got really messed up at the end there. I was dicking around the whole time.
Looks like this one's alright.
Let's see. I didn't hit the button, did I?
Looks
Yeah.
like this one's alright.
Don't be a landlord. Oh yeah, well that's what I'm saying is that, like, the things that I've done that are the worst are the things that I did in my capacity as a landlord, where it's like, oh yeah, this brings up, like, the absolute worst in people. Right, like, it's entirely possible that outside of their capacity as a landlord, your landlord is actually a fairly chill person. And then their capacity as a landlord comes into play, and it's like, oh, actually, no, you shouldn't... This very specific type of power that you have over other human beings is, like, fundamentally corrupting in a way that this should just not exist. Oh, that was cool. It just double swapped me. How dare you. So she just hit me with a normal attack, which swapped me, and then she immediately followed up that with a fireball, because I think those are on separate cooldowns, basically. Or, like, the normal attack maybe has, like, an animation for it, and the spells technically have an animation, but they mostly have a recovery time. So they can follow up the attack with an immediate spell, and I don't know if they can do the vice versa. I don't think they can, because I think that the attack is tied to the animation, so I don't think they can start an attack until they do that. But hey, we got a large shield. That could be a big improvement. All right, you know what? We should probably go here. Let's go here. We're going to see what happens if I move here. Can I... Actually, I'm going to stand here instead. See, the issue with this strategy is that if I do it immediately, then they start beating the crap out of me while I'm doing the thing. Okay.
Is but a scratch.
But, you know, look, maybe the real thing is that I should not be given a position of authority, because I will definitely not respond to it well. Since I am the captain in my barotrauma game, and, you know, I warned people. You don't want me as captain. And then they said, you should do captain anyway. And I'm like, okay, I'll be captain. And now I'm just micromanaging everybody. Adding extra work for people. As is my job. As is my purpose. As captain. I can't help but roleplay, you know? You make me captain and say captains get a pistol on a submarine, I say, okay, that means I'm a political. And if I'm a political, that has some very specific implications on how I'm going to treat the crew. I treat my crew very well. I'm an inspirational leader, one might say. That's what it is. I'm an inspiration to us all. Okay, some of these do fire, some of these do light. Okay, good to know. Yeah, my general feeling is that hierarchy is a thing that is best avoided. Wherever possible. There are situations where you just need somebody to make a decision, but most of those kinds of things are very limited in terms of scope, right? Like, if you get a bunch of people, and a lot of that can just be done on the fly, right? Like, if you have a bunch of people in a room, and none of them can agree on which restaurant you're going to, having someone in the room just say, out of nowhere and with no actual ability to enforce, we're going to this restaurant, and then see what happens, is actually really good. It's really good for someone to just make an authoritative statement that has no authority behind it. Does that make sense? Like, being authoritative in the sense of, like, you are just saying this is what shall be done is actually pretty good. Because, and this is something that I found out when when people ask me for advice, like, at some point I remember, like, I would be eating out with a person in my life, and I won't specify who, because I don't think this is terribly embarrassing for them, but just in case. And I would be eating out with a certain person in my life, and they would ask, oh, what do you think I should get? And I am of zero opinion all the time, because the question doesn't even make sense to me. I don't understand why people ask such questions, because I have no idea what your brain is doing, and I have no idea what's going on in it, right? So, they ask for recommendations. And the thing that I would always go, oh, well, I have no idea. Like, you should just get what you want. And they're like, if I knew what I wanted, I wouldn't be asking. And I'm like, okay. And what I found out is, if I just tell them the thing, I just pick at random, you should get this when they ask me. Not when they don't ask. To be clear, this is a thing that you do in response to someone asking you a question that it's like, how on earth would I possibly answer this for you? That doesn't make sense. If you just tell them an answer, even if they know that you're choosing arbitrarily, even if they have foreknowledge that you are just going to arbitrarily pick an option and you have no opinion, hearing that option, they'll either feel good about the confirmation or they'll feel bad because they don't want it. And that immediately tells them which of the two options they prefer. Like, it actually has a direct impact, because you can't feel it intrinsically, but as soon as you get someone telling you what to do, you'll either feel like, yeah, that makes sense, or no. No, fuck you, I don't want that. So if somebody picks the wrong answer, then you know to get the other one. And if they pick the right answer, then you're set. And I think that that's great. Yeah. the thing with hierarchy is that like hierarchy intrinsically creates the conditions for people to arbitrarily make up what the rules are. And this holds true even in like, you know, social like stuff, like purely social interactions where like one person, like the issue with like what I said about like it's nice to have a person just say the thing that you're gonna do. It can never always be the same person who is doing that. It has to be different people each time. Not each time, but like you can't have only one person who's doing that, because then they're, you know, going to influence the group in ways that they don't want to be influencing the group, right? They don't want to be running the group. That's not, they're just hanging out with their friends. They don't want to be running the group, and nobody else wants the group run by them either. Yeah, I think some of it has to do with like the way that we process information, where it's like, I think that it's easier for some people to process information in terms of yes or no than in terms of this or that. Where like calling it yes or no or this or that has actually a very strong and meaningful impact on the way that the information works within their head and the efficacy of like your decision making as a result. I'm gonna try to fuck. On the plus side, you're doing light damage, so Kamanaten can't be killed by the boss itself. I don't have to worry about the boss, I have to worry about the weak ones exclusively. So the problem is that eventually more of these are going to spawn, and I'm going to get blown apart by whatever spawns next. Yeah, I do think that the Peter Parker quote is generally, or I guess Ben Parker. The Ben Parker quote is generally a pretty good one, where it's like, yeah, I mean, you do have more responsibility, actually, when you have more power. Because, you know, it's not a problem when, you know, someone who's powerless is, like, interpersonally, like, kind of a lot, right? But then if you give them the power of the state, they're, like, doing massive crimes, right?
I don't know.
This holds true, like, on a lot of different levels, right? Like, there's, like, a lot of... like, even, like, in social dynamics, in a lot of cases, like, it's just, there's such a huge difference between, like, in the context of different situations of, like, what are the consequences of this behavior more so than the... And I think that's part of what comes, like, being, like, a responsible, like, person. A lot of it comes down to recognizing what power you hold in what circumstances and what the implications of that power actually are on the people around you. And, like, not thinking only within your own head, but being able to think in other people's heads, not about what you would do, but about what you could do. Right? Like, the ability to think not in terms of, like, oh, well, you know, I would never do that thing, so it's ridiculous for them to think that thing. But instead to think, I could do this thing, and it's ridiculous not to remember that I can. Right? That this is an option that I am choosing to set aside. Right? Anytime you have a position of power, which is every interaction, you have some power and some vulnerabilities in any interaction that you have socially. Knowing what the levers that if you were not... knowing which levers you are not touching, but which are nevertheless in the mech that you're controlling, is important. I think that that's a good place to end the
This is perfect.
the rounds of arena stuff for now, because I feel like we did a lot of arena yesterday, and I think that it makes sense to kind of just take an easy out when we're given one, right? Where it's like, okay, this is a little bit difficult, we're going to take the out. So let's take a look at where we're sitting now. We need to go to Might and Magic 6 to do something. We also, okay, so we picked up some stuff there. We got this item, which we're going to want to rework at some point. We have 4 pieces of leather at this point, which is a lot of leather. We still need a piece of plate. Luckily, we haven't gotten a bunch of excess chain, which is more of a problem, because chain only is on one person, so there's not really a huge amount of differentiation there. Whereas leather is on 2 different characters who have actually different stat needs. So, like, Severia, for instance, does not have body immunity. And that's a fairly big difference in terms of what the implied necessity of different things. So we're going to go to Enroth. Let's see. And we're doing Silver Cove. Did I decide that I wanted to do the night quests? I think I did, right? I think we decided that Warlord's Stronghold was the place to go here. We get that done. And that's probably going to be fairly tough, but probably not that crazy. I think there's some good kiting. No, actually, it might be kind of nuts. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm remembering the fact that I was doing a lot of shenanigans with the stuff.
Pleased to see you.
That is not a lot of food available. I'm gonna go to a place that has more food available. We need to have the ability to save a few times.
I suppose you'll be pirate stew.
Yeah, we've had a very long period of commodification where we've tried to insert everything into the economy, including things that don't fit into markets very well because of the demand curve being like infinite, right? There's infinite demand for certain things like healthcare, which, you know, is not optimal. So there are certain things in our economy that should be decommodified. And that... And housing is just one. It's just one of the things that should be decommodified. And what that means is complicated, because the process of decommodifying things is actually... that are currently commodified is pretty hard. But it was also hard to commodify them in the first place, so... You know. But we can't just go back in time and not commodify them. So... The secret door. Those things were pretty easy. I don't remember where all the enemies are in here. Looks like there's no enemies in this passage here. What level are you? Those are 127. So we're definitely not in the clear. These are still fairly high level. Yeah, American healthcare is pretty bottom tier. It's pretty bottom tier.
I've never seen one before. Let's leave it behind.
One of the things that I think is interesting is that there's an idea. So I was supposed to roll for something. What was I supposed to roll for? I'm so sorry. Roll for crafting cube. Okay, we didn't roll yet. Random number generator. So we're gonna roll, and instead of using this roll, okay, that's a 4. It's not Severia. It's not Severia. Cortal, you're getting a crafting cube on something? Question mark. You don't have anything that you can put a crafting cube on, do you? You have this necklace, so this necklace is getting a crafting cube. Okay.
We could sell it.
It's like the only character that I don't just have armor that I could use it on. Let's see. But the other thing, though, that I will say is that global healthcare is kind of fucked up in general. American healthcare is worse about it than most places. Not most, yeah, I would say that most places, like structurally. But a lot of the structures that are in American healthcare that are bad also exist in other places and are either mitigated by other factors or aren't and are kind of like equally a problem. Because it's not just like there's more problems with healthcare as an institution than just the specific types of problems that American healthcare is emblematic of. If that makes any sense. There's a lot of issues tied in. Oh, there's 2 bosses in this pack. Holy shit. There's a lot of issues that are tied into the kind of like the culture of it. Though a lot of those are probably also tied into the profit motive as well, to be fair. But yeah, it's another place that's easy to... Housing is easier to solve as a decommodification issue. Healthcare is a very complicated issue that we need to figure out a way to decommodify it, but it's also a very difficult thing to decommodify because it's a very complicated industry with a lot of moving parts and components to it. Whereas the housing industry is actually fairly easy to decommodify because, like, building houses and how do you pay for houses to be built is actually not that complicated. That's not a really complicated question compared to the extremely long and convoluted supply chains that go into medical production and medical... like, the difference between getting a house built, even or 100 houses built, versus the infrastructure necessary to treat a single patient because of the things that you need in that process, right? There's software, there's hardware needs, there's expertise on the doctors, there's expertise from the nurses, which is a fully separate form of expertise. You have the expertise of the people who manufacture the tools. You have the expertise necessary because, and by the tools, it's not one skill set. There's 1,000 different types of tools that require completely different skill sets. Right, like blood tests are completely different from like scalpels, for instance. Blood tests are totally different from whatchamacallit, sterilization, like creating sterilization strategies, and you know the all the things that go in are just, there's so much. Well, so the government is a corporation with a monopoly on violence in the region. Okay. A monopoly on the legitimate use of violence in a region. So whoever has the monopoly on violence, which is to say whoever has the police force, is the government. That's what a government is. A government is just that. So the authority that a government has is a unique type of authority because of the monopoly on violence. Right? Like, they have a monopoly on violence, and as a result of them having a monopoly on violence, they have a type of authority that no one else can have, right, within a given area, right? And so you end up with... so the government is unique compared to other corporations, but bear in mind that other types of corporations will often act as a governing body. So if you have a company town, right? So a company town is a town that's owned by the company. The town's police force is hired by the company. The town's like infrastructure is handled by the company. But the important thing is the rules and regulations of the thing are run by the company. The company becomes the government, right? And this is not because so there's nothing magical that makes a government other than the monopoly of violence. So I don't know that. So the thing is that I don't know that I would say that governments are illegitimate. Governments are a thing. The thing that a government is the entity that has a monopoly on violence in the region. Whether I would consider it legitimate or not is tied not to some like pretending that a government is something that it isn't. It's tied to, is the government doing good things or is the government doing bad things? And does the government represent the people that are working under it? Right. So this is the fundamentals of what I think. And when I say the people, I don't mean the voters. Right? Like, the Roman Republic represented the voters, but the voters was like 12 people. Like, there's nobody who was in that class. So how legitimate an organization is, in my mind, as a governing body, whether that be a corporate government that is within the purview of the government itself, right? So like within a corporation, within an area, the people that are impacted by the actions of the group, both internal and external, should have a say in what that group does. And that is where the legitimacy thing comes from to me, is that the more representative of the interests of the people who are impacted by this organization, the more legitimate I consider the organization to be. And the government, whether it be a government that is presiding over a locality, or whether it's governance over an economic organization, right? Like your more classic corporations, or not classic, but like the corporations that people would think of, because like corporations ran the colonies, right? Like they were explicitly the governors of the colonies. They were the government. The idea that the government and corporations are separate entities is a modern fiction, right? Like that's like a modern separation. Like during the colonial period, no one was going to say that corporations aren't governments, right? That's a modern thing. So the labels that you're using there, are not ideological labels in any meaningful way. So, like, the term liberal means capitalist. But when people use the term liberal, they're not talking about capital. They're talking about, like, the more progressive side of capitalism. And when they talk about conservatives, they're talking about the more conservative side of capitalism, right? The issue is that leaves out all of the other ideologies that exist, some of which are very dangerous, and some of which I think are very good and have good ideas that we ignore because we create this liberal conservative fiction that is not a real dichotomy. Like, if you look at someone who would self-describe as a liberal and someone who would self-describe as a conservative, they agree on almost everything. Especially foreign policy, liberals and conservatives agree on basically everything, because at the end of the day, they're all just neoliberals, right? Like, that's what they are. They are people who believe in the modern status quo. It's just they just have differences in terms of, like, fairly minor dynamics within those systems, but both of them have a lot of the same flaws in their reasoning and have a lot of the same fundamental presumptions about the way that the world should work, right? Libertarianism is a socialist ideology. And almost everyone who would identify as a libertarian today is a rich person who doesn't want to pay taxes. So the one of the issues of terms, right, is that when a person who would today self-describe themselves as a libertarian but would not call themselves a libertarian socialist, if you ask them any follow-up questions, it tends to become clear that most libertarians' position is that they want property law. So this is not libertarian socialists, which are a different thing. Which is a different political ideology. But most libertarians think that property law is the only thing that should be protected. And if you think that only property law should be protected, fundamentally you believe that whoever has the most property should be a king. Right? That's what you fundamentally believe. So, because of the fact that they believe that private property, which, to be clear, private property is different from personal property. And do not get this twisted. When conservatives, fascists, libertarians try to, like, tell you that someone who is against private property it's like if they came to your house and started, like, stealing your Legos or whatever, right? Your Legos are not your private property. That's personal property. That's a different thing. Private property is property that you own, which you then have other people work on, and you take the money. That's what private property is. Private property is fundamentally exploitative, right? Intrinsically. It is intrinsically exploitative. Whether it's a landlord who is making you work someone else's job in order to pay them to live in the house that you live in, or whether it is, which, to be clear, is private property, is not a capitalist. That's a rent seeker, which is technically a different thing. There's overlap between the two things, but a rent seeker is not a capitalist quite. They're slightly different things. Or you have a factory and you pay people a salary that is less than the value of what they have created for you, and you take a portion of that. You take a portion of their value for yourself for no other reason than you own the factory. that's rent seeking, and rent seeking of that kind, like, basically can only exist within a system where someone has a monopoly on violence and enforces it, right? Like, you only own the thing because if somebody else tries to use it, a cop is going to come and imprison you and use physical violence against you, right? That's the only reason that you can claim to own the thing, right? And from my perspective, that claim is not a legitimate claim. I don't remember what Georgism is. Let's see. I'm not sure how a government would take more than it gives. Taking taxes is because, like, a government isn't a profit-generating entity. It doesn't have shareholders, right? It doesn't have, like, a thing. So technically speaking, it has to give out what it gives in some way, because, like, a government like, architecturally, like, there's nowhere for the money to go. But the let's see. But yeah, I don't know that I would consider what governments do rent seeking intrinsically, but I think that yes, generally speaking, no, I actually wouldn't consider it rent seeking. The issue fundamentally comes down to the fact that if you have a government that is taking in taxes and someone owns the government. So, like, if you have a let's say, as an example, you have a company town. In a company town, any taxes that are taken in by the government are being distributed to shareholders. That distribution to the shareholders is the rent seeking, right? So the rent seeking is a component of the value that is being generated by the working class being siphoned off into the bourgeois, fundamentally. Someone who owns the thing, taking on the thing. So outside of an explicitly corrupt government, I don't know that I would consider it rent-seeking outside of the context of, like, in like a modern nation, I would say that an example of, like, rent-seeking-ish behaviors from the government, it would be two types of classifications. One is when they give something that's explicitly illegal, which is giving contracts to, I guess it's not actually anymore. It used to be illegal, but giving contracts to people who are giving you money, or giving contracts to your family members, or giving contracts to yourself, right? That kind of thing is rent-seeking because you're taking the money in and then you're giving it to a shareholder in some way, right? That is rent-seeking. You could argue, and I think you could argue successfully, that the really, like, obvious, like, local, like, we want to make this, like, factory or whatever happen in this state, so the state legislature is gonna, or the state legislators are gonna hold the federal, like federal funds for some other unrelated project hostage until it happens. You could argue that that's kind of akin to rent-seeking behavior. I would say that it's meaningfully different in some key ways because it's kind of part and parcel to how the system has to work to some degree, because you want things built for the people in the localities. The federal government's job isn't just to look after some mythical, like in the case of an American, it's specifically to look after people in Philadelphia, to look after people in Texas, to look after people in Georgia, to look after people. There are specific people that are real, and those specific real people have real specific needs. It's not all theoretical, right? So, like, the federal government can't just make decisions that only impact everybody at the same time. So I would say that, like, I don't know if I would consider that rent-seeking. It's in the line. So, to be clear, when I say rent-seeking, I'm not saying that it's intrinsically bad, right? So, like, if I if I could be convinced that the like individual low-level politicians trying to use the federal government to get good things for their local, their local people, if I could be convinced that that kind of counts because of the pseudo shareholder relationship that those people have with the person in power, if I could be convinced that that's rent seeking, it wouldn't mean that I think that it's bad. It would be a different argument to question whether it's bad or not. I don't really remember Georgism. I think that I've heard about it, but my general perspective, I would say, on economic theorists is that they will often have interesting perspectives, and every single one of them is wrong.
Let's leave it behind.
They're wrong in an absolute sense, but you can still get interesting insights from them. I think that it makes sense to take a sort of postmodernist view to really complicated shit that's kind of unknowable, like economics, because you can't get good data on economics. But I think it's also useful to take that kind of a view generally when it comes to like actual sciences as well. Like, I'm perfectly happy to say that every physicist on Earth is wrong about how physics works. I feel perfectly confident to say that. Because the purpose of physics isn't to be correct. The purpose of physics is to be useful. Right? And the question is it useful to believe, is it useful to have this set of presumptions when you're working with this type of interaction? And if it gives you, rocket ships and things like that, then it's a useful presumption to have, even though it's probably not, even though we know for a fact that it's not going to adequately explain everything, and that there is a reality, and it is not adequately explained by this theory that we've come up with. Like, we don't need to come up with the truth. We just need to come up with things that are useful for describing the thing that, for being able to make predictions about what's happening. And it's possible that in 100 years we'll have more like, theories that seem like they're reasonably able to bridge the gap between useful and true. But I don't even know that I think that that's like really realistically possible, because we're fundamentally monkeys in middle world, right? We are not super big, we're not super small, and we have a very limited framework of comprehension of the way that things can work. And I don't know if we can actually understand physics in a broad way, where it's like, oh yes, this is a thing that we can intuitively grasp. I don't know if that's a thing that will ever happen, or if we will forever have all these weird seeming paradoxes in the way that the world works that just come down to, our brains only work so good. But let's see. Well, I have all sorts of preconceived notions. The thing that I found very useful was I listened to a wide variety of sources for a few years, and they were all idiots, because, I'm nothing if not an arrogant piece of shit. But I didn't agree with any of them. But over time, by listening to what they had to say, I eventually came up with the things that seemed like the people who were lying, the people who were incoherent, and the people who were kind of like not incomplete, right? Like the people who are incomplete, they have like an incomplete understanding of the thing. people who have a fundamental misunderstanding and people who are just grifting. They're just lying, right? Where the thing they say today and the thing they say tomorrow have no connective tissue. Now, to be fair, those people might not be lying in the sense that they might actually believe a completely different thing today than they believe tomorrow. That's an entirely possible thing to have happen. But it doesn't matter whether they're telling the truth or whether they are grifting. It doesn't matter if there's no coherence to their, moral or intellectual philosophy, then I don't really need to pay that close of attention to what they're saying. So, like, I was able to basically, like, sift things down to stuff where it's like, okay, like, I can tolerate listening to these specific people without just wanting to pull my hair out. And that's basically where I get most of my political news these days, is from people that don't make me pull my hair out, and then occasionally listening to people who do make me want to pull my hair out.
I can't carry anymore.
And, arguing with the television.
This is nice. Let's leave it behind. Ooh.
I think that the issue that most people have with politics is the fact that, in terms of being able to understand it, is the fact that there's really no money in like teaching people how to actually comprehend like political theory, and there's really just not a lot of people on Earth
There's no room.
who have a decent background in comprehension of it, that don't also, because the only way that you're going to learn about political stuff is from imperial propaganda, right? Like, an empire is propagandizing to you is the only way that you learn anything about politics, like almost exclusively. And the issue is that people go, I don't, listen to imperial propaganda, I listen to this thing. And it's like, okay, well, that thing is funded almost completely by, like, an empire, right? Whether it's, like, whether it's American media, whether it's Russian media, whether it's Chinese media, most independent media
Let's leave it behind.
is either backed by billionaires who are they have an ideologic predisposition, shockingly enough. People who have a vested class interest in the world thinking very specific ways are, billionaires are one of the groups that has that. Or it's from an entity like the CCP, it's an entity like the US government, it's an entity like the Russian government, and these kinds of like imperial powers have such a huge influence on the space that what you generally end up with is just like different imperial propagandists yelling at each other. And so the biggest part of like understanding politics is just like, how do you wade through the noise of all of the people that, whether they know it or not, are towing the party line of a specific like entity. And it's difficult because, like, there's no money in, in communicating like an effective understanding of things that are happening in the world, I don't think. But the way that you understand things, I do think, is that you have to look at things from different perspectives according to like what is going on, right? Like, Marx was fundamentally writing about like industrial era labor relationships that are not universal to the comprehension of labor, right? Like a peasant's interaction with the count that owns their farm is not the same power relationship as the relationship between a capitalist and a factory worker, right? Those are different relationships. And Marx was writing during a transformative time where we were transitioning into the capitalist relationship there, and they're both exploitative relationships, right? They both are similar in terms of like a lot of the effects that they have, but they're mechanically quite different, right? Like a capitalist is usually not going to use you as a levy, not directly. Like you're not going to be called by your landlord to fight against the landlord next door. What you will be called to do is you'll be called by the state. You'll be called by the entity that has a monopoly on violence, which is not your capitalist, which is a different, it's not your landlord. It's not the person who runs your company. It's a different third party that just shares a lot of class interests with the people who the people who own your house and the people who own the factory that you work in, right? And so there's a term that socialists use for a sort of like flawed democracy that is tainted by capital interests, which is to say any democracy wherein you have like capitals, because if you have capital is going to have a disproportionate impact on the democratic processes of the state itself, right? So the for a variety of reasons. It's not like conspiratorial. It's just like if you have power, you have power, and power is translatable. You can translate power in the economic sense into power in the political sense because they're both just power. There are slight differences between the two of them, but they're fundamentally, again, like Google has a disproportionate effect on Apple compared to a random person on the street, right? Because Google has a lot of money, and the government, which is just another corporation, it's just a corporation that has a monopoly on violence, is similarly going to be impacted more by by other corporations than it is by individuals. Anyway, so when you're thinking about economic theories and things like that, it's always useful to think of them in terms of frames of analysis. In physics, you don't use like Newtonian physics to try to describe the way that particles behave, right? Even though Newtonian physics, on a technical level, is describing how particles behave, right? Everything is kind of describing how particles behave at the end of the day. Everything's describing like how gravity works, like the fundamental concepts build into the larger stuff, right? So Newtonian physics kind of describes, if you squint at it the right way, the way that particles behave in very specific circumstances, right? But if you're dealing with particles, you don't use Newton. You have a different set of rules that you look at because they're all going to be wrong, but that doesn't mean they're not useful, right? Like Newtonian physics does not describe the entire universe, and it doesn't have to. It just has to describe the stuff that it does very effectively. The stuff that it does describe, it has to describe effectively, which it does. And similarly, for economic theory, you have to be able to look at something and see whether it has predictions and whether those predictions are reasonable. And if those predictions don't come to pass, well, another thing is you have to look at whether the predictions are actually meaningful, right? So like, as an example, if you don't need Marx to describe
Let's leave it behind.
Who needs it?
why capitalism has a crisis every 20 years. If you don't need Marx for that, you don't necessarily need to go to Marx for that, right? There's a lot of people that would have a lot of different interpretations of that, except as far as I can tell, there kind of aren't that many interpretations of why capitalism is going continuously into death spirals every 20 years. I don't know that people just kind of pretend that it's not happening, generally. And economists are aware of it happening. It's their field of expertise, but nobody listens to the economists. But also, like, it's an interesting element where it's like, okay, well, there's every 20 years there is this cyclical crisis, and every time people pretend that it's a new thing, and it's not a new thing. It's the same thing. It's the intrinsic, the fundamental contradictions of capital, right? The fundamental contradictions of capitalism describe that very effectively. Now, is it possible that there's another explanation for it that works better than that explanation that I've just never heard of? Absolutely. But I haven't heard of one that does a better job of it. And most of the time people like hand wave it. They'll do stuff like say, it's just individual bad actors are the reason that this thing keeps happening. And it's like, I don't think individual bad actors can be blamed for a thing that happens every 20 years, actually. I don't think that is a workable economic suggestion, but let's see. So the thing to remember about, like, so this is a thing to remember about liberals, okay? And most people, like, may not be ideologically liberal, but they have the ideas inscribed to them that are true in this case. It is very easy for people to fall into the idea that the specific problems that we have today, the specific problems of racism, the specific problems of sexism, the specific problems that don't seem related intrinsically to, like, specific details of our stuff, that those problems would be replicated in any system. And this is something that you see in art a lot, where you have problems in this fantasy world that has, like, a different set of rules to it. And the problems that they have are fundamentally very, very familiar. And some of those problems are problems that are part of the human condition. There's a lot of social problems that are problems of the human condition, but others aren't. Like, as an example, we tend to think of racism as being just a part of the human condition. It's not. Racism had to be invented. Racism was invented to justify the triangle trade. We have the book it was invented in, right? Like, we know where racism comes from. It comes from justifying the triangle trade because at the time it was illegal to enslave Christians, which led to a liability where if the slaves converted to Christianity, they had to be freed. And so they had to come up with something to justify changing the rules so that some Christians were still not actually considered Christians and could actually still be enslaved. That's the reason that racism exists. Like, as a concept, racism is weird. And you'll see a lot, people conflate ethnic tensions and racial tensions. But racism is not the same as being bigoted against an ethnic group, right? It's not the same. Like, the English are not racist against the Irish. That's not the word that describes that. They are bigoted against the Irish. If you've ever seen, like, The Guardian or like BBC or any of these like British like newspapers that are run out of England, if you've ever seen any of those talk about like Irish or Scottish independence movements, the degree of disdain that they have for the people of Scotland and the people of Ireland is so wild. It is out of control. It's the kind of stuff that you could not get away with talking about black people this way in America in like the New York Times. You just could not get away with it. But being Irish isn't a race. Irish is an ethnicity. It's tied to a specific culture and it's tied to a specific set of things, right? It's a social club. An ethnicity is a social club. It's not a race. It's not a genetic club. So racism needed to be created because like an ethnic bigotry only works as long as the people have a different culture from you. But once you bring them in and enslave them for a few generations, they're not of a different ethnicity anymore. They're now from your place, from your culture, right? So you could hypothetically, anyway, it's a whole thing. But suffice to say, the desire to unite Christendom, leading to the enslavement of Christians being abolished, was the fundamental driving force that created racism in the way that we think of it today. Because it had to be used to justify chattel slavery, while also allowing the Protestants to convert their slaves to their religion that was fundamentally built on, if you work really hard and suffer in life, you will go to heaven, and if you don't do that, you will go to hell. That's the fundamentals of Protestantism. So yeah. But the reason that I bring that up is that you have this interesting element where a lot of times in media, whether it's video games, whether it's movies, whether it's books, you'll have the presumption that racism is a thing in this setting. There is a presumption that, oh, well, these people are different, therefore this other group will hate them. And it's like, no. The hatred is cultivated by a power group that wants to oppress this group of people, and they do so by telling them that this other group of people is the real source of their problems, and creating a power dynamic between these two groups that this group doesn't want to kick. This group wants to keep the power relation over this group, which intrinsically keeps the power relation of this group up here over them, right? And that would be kings, dukes, the bourgeois being capital owning class, whatever they are in whatever period of history that you're in, the people who like control everything because they own everything, right? That is to say, again, kings, queens, and bourgeois. When I do say this, I'm not trying to be like evasive with my language. I am saying these specific groups. I'm not doing the weird like them bullshit that Nazis do. I'm not talking about Jewish people. Please, for the love of God. I'm talking about capital owning class, kings, queens, dictators, monarchs, people that you can see them, right? You can see them, Saddam Hussein is right there. Like, you can see him doing the bad things. You can see him being the tyrant. I'm not talking about some, like, shadowy vizier hiding behind Saddam Hussein. No, like, look, he's right there. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, is that, let's be clear, like, every religion has been used to justify all sorts of crazy shit, right? Now, Christianity has some uniquely questionable characteristics to it in that I think Christianity might be the only religion that actually finds the apocalypse desirable, right? Like, they're the only ones who kind of actively desire for the end of the world, so it's kind of a weird religion in that way. But that has impacts on, like, a larger societal level most individual Christians are not individually thinking, oh man, it'll be so great when the apocalypse happens in 2 weeks. You know, that's not what most individual people are thinking. It doesn't impact like interpersonal stuff very much at all, outside of like really weird sects. But if you get into those like really weird sects, I'm sure that if you went back to Norse, you'd have some like weird Ragnarok cultists who are just like delighting in the idea of Ragnarok happening. Once you get into like the weird, like culty elements, you're going to find that in every religion, right? It may or may not be more prevalent in a religion that is kind of built with that as part of its central architecture, and so it may or may not make a difference there. I don't really know.
It's
but
useless.
the I generally think that most people are pretty similar, and I don't have anything against individual religious people at all. And I, like and organized religion, I certainly don't have anything more against organized religion than I have against any of the other structures that exist. I'm much more anti-capitalist than I am anti-religion. Much more. One of these is a big problem in the 1400s. One of these is a big problem today. You know, like, not... Unless we have strong reason to revisit this topic, I feel like, you know, we don't need to worry about it too much. It's not a major issue. Okay. Let's see. So we've cleared out this. We're at... Okay, so we need to go to 8. And we cleared out iron sand. We somehow lost all of our beacons. Oh, because we've been going to the arena a bunch. I forgot about that completely. So let's pop over to Murmur Woods, I guess. We can reset this. We have a bolster level 100 here in MMA now. Balthazar's Lair doing the thinger? What am I going to do about Harmondale now? I mean, when we get there, right? I think we're just going to head over there, right? I think we could go there now, because we did the... I don't know that it matters. Because we turned in the quest. So I think that we should be fine. I think that the next time that we go to Harmondale, we can clear it. Yeah, we did Walls of Mist. So I believe that we're golden. Yeah, we did that last stream. Okay, so we did this. We have this dungeon here. I'm gonna do this one because I think it'll probably be fairly easy and give a lot of experience. So let's go to the church. Yeah, we actually ran into this problem just in time, it turns out. I'm glad we were able to do a bunch of the thingers. Can I actually jump this? Okay, I guess I can. Oh my god! Oh god. Well.
Kill me.
Help me.
That was a big pack. Ooh boy. Okay, I forgot how this dungeon works. Let's try this again. I'm embarrassed. I should have gotten that done. I should have gotten that. If I had pumped back into here, I would have been able to make that happen. Okay. So from here... Can I just hit it? No. Ah, I should not have jumped there, by the way. Okay, so I think this is something that I can just clear. Unfortunately, we got a really weak pack here this time. We got an extremely strong pack the last time. I don't think there's that many in this. So I think, sadly, that it's not that huge a difference.
That wasn't so bad.
Like, I could have probably... Yeah, I could have just cleared this normally. So we did the thing that would allow us... What does the switch do? Oh. It's probably gonna end badly, isn't it? They don't seem to be coming in. Oh, they can't come in. Okay. So we're gonna go back down. We can actually save here, so let's just save. No, I don't want to save. We got such a weak pack at the beginning. I feel like we kind of, like... If we die here, then we die here. It's not a big deal. Like, I'd rather... Alright, they seem to be... These seem to just get stuck here if I just walk over here, so... Alright, unfortunately we got a really weak variance. There's not even a boss in this. God, I'm so tempted to just reload. It's tempting to reload, but I don't deserve it. If I wanted to get it done, I should have played better, you know? So... Can I just grab that with telekinesis? I don't remember the specific details of this, but I think that we come from this direction. Can I just tag you? Do I need to go up there?
Let's leave it behind. We don't need this. My pack's full.
Sorry.
Probably should have
Powerful this
changed my
is.
inventories a bit.
Very weak. Powerful, very weak. Huh.
We don't need this.
Okay. Oh. It didn't... Huh. Okay, well, I guess we're done here. So we can turn in this quest, which might not even actually get us enough to go to the next thing. Let's find out. Where's my cheese? Where's my cheese at? Did my cheese move? There's my cheese. Okay. Did not move. And that was in Alvar. So we're popping over to Alvar. We're going to turn this quest in, and then we're probably going to immediately jump to another place here. If we're going to jump to another place here, I might not turn this quest in until after I finish the place that I'm going to do. Because I'll get a bunch of experience from this that is not reduced by my level, but any experience that I get... Let's see. Interesting. That was not a lot of experience. I am going to reload, though. We want to turn this quest in after we've reached the end point of this section, because we're not going to be able to get... That quest doesn't give me enough experience to leave, so we don't want the extra experience here, because it increases our relative level to the enemies. So what we want instead is to figure out where we're going. So we'll just go back to Ravage Roaming. And we'll do the Ifrit dungeon, I guess? Get that done quick. And that will go well. Let's go, actually, not go to the Ifrit dungeon. Let's instead go train. So that we don't fall over dead from exhaustion. And I'm going to guess that it's over here somewhere. Not there? Sorry, I was looking at my messages and going, are these things that I need to interact with? Do I need to worry about any of this? Kill to the mind welcomes you. Let's go down here. We'll find it eventually. It's the shrine. Yeah, no kidding. I'm not sure what you mean in specific, but just about any place on the internet,
Here for
it
instruction.
ends up
Well done.
in
Well
weird,
done. Well done.
weird places eventually. You know? There's not a lot of fandoms that you won't end up in weird positions at some point. Okay, so we've got all this up to 24. Let's see, we're gonna get arms and bodybuilding up. Let's keep bodybuilding caught up. I don't know why I let bodybuilding fall behind so much. We wanted to get leather and bodybuilding up to 20, right? Got you. Okay. So that means that we have reset the timer. And can move on. Where's the move? I guess it must have dropped during the battles. Alright. So we have finished this, we finished this, we just need to do this now, I think. So we're almost done with Ravage roaming, or Balthazar's roaming, or Balthazar's lair of roaming rampaging, or whatever its name is. I think Ravage roaming is a name that it uses in some of the like going in screens, but then they call it Balthazar's roaming in Balthazar's lair later or something. Yeah, it says Ravage roaming right there. But then maybe it's when you go into Ravage roaming that it says go to Balthazar's roaming or something. Because Balthazar's lair is obviously the place, but I think there's actually a disconnect in the description of the exterior as well. The last time we came in here, this place crushed us. So we're going to see if that happens again this time or not. They do have AoEs, which is dangerous. And Severia has a lot of life steal, but not enough to stay up. We basically need to get a smaller collection of them on us, but I think that we're going to be okay. That was a pretty large pack. So if a pack that size is as close to manageable as that, I think we might be okay. I think I need to just not switch this stuff.
Help me! I have no help me!
Take these out in time. Doesn't look like it. So what do I need to focus? I think I maybe wasn't able to focus fire as much as I wanted with that. Okay, this is a smaller pack. I don't remember like who all AoEs. Interesting.
here.
I think it might just be the Lords, but I think it's the Lords and the Knights, maybe?
Come on, let's go in.
just coffee and chill. Alright, we've got a decent pack here that we're not going to be able to clear if we do it this way. I think I am actually going to invis into this room. I think that that's the play, because I think that we're either going to have to rely on getting a weak initial
Looks like
pack,
this one's all right.
or doing some shenaniganry with our movement. And we can survive the initial sparks. We have these here. Is there a place we can get them that is safe? Can we just, like, go down here? This might work. It might not, but it might work. How funny would it be if this place could be solved by just running through the center and getting to this corner?
Heal me.
That's not a Naga.
Tis but
Okay,
a
the
scratch.
Adamantite is down. We're gonna take out this Ifriti Knight. My hope is that we only have like a few of them that can hit me right now, and that we can maintain a small number of them while taking out the knights and things that show up over time. It's down. But unfortunately, I do think that we've now got more of them on us. I'm gonna jump up here. I'm gonna get behind here. And I think that they caught up quick there. Holy shit. That was a lot. Okay, that's fine.
Looks like this one's all right.
No biggie. So I could try to do some shenanigans in this corner. I'm not going to. We're gonna just pop in here, and I could try. I'm actually all the way into the green if I just go into the back here. So if I do this, I presume. Oh wow, that is a lot more than I would have expected with aggro, considering I was literally in the green. Oh, there's a swapper? Oh, I am completely gone. Okay, let's try this again. So we could try that corner
Come on, let's go in.
if we want. We could also try, like, one of these corners. Like, we could try using one of these pillars to block the attacks. I don't think this is going to work super well, because there's just too many of them, and they have too many AoEs that I don't think it's going to be a problem. Or sorry, I don't think it's going to be a viable solution. So instead, I'm just going to take that. We are just going to pop down to this next section here. And for some reason, even though we're in the green back here, we are aggroing like every enemy. Do I want to try this corner? I'm going to try this corner. We'll see if this works better or worse. That is not promising. That's very, very not promising.
I'm wounded.
I don't think this is going to work.
Heal me.
It hypothetically could, but I don't think this is going to work. We've definitely got some of them in a place where you'd think they could hit us, but they actually can't. So, one thing that I could try to do is focus actually on these knights. See how much DPS we can mitigate this way. Because the knights, I think, are doing way more damage than Nagas because of the AoEs. So get that done. This knight I don't think is actually hitting me. But we've got a huge pack of enemies here. Only some of them can hit me at any given time. So So it's a matter of how many of them can hit me. And right now, the answer is quite a few. But you can see that all of these can't. Like, the enemies that are like that cannot hit me, I don't think. Because otherwise they'd be using an attack animation. So, but we do have leaks that are going to eventually kill me here. Even though Commandant is very tanky and very good at surviving that last bit. So, the other option that we have, I believe I remember doing some shenanigans with one of these places. Was I able to get... Oh, I can get in here. So if I get in here, it's possible that only a subset will be able to hit me. And if that subset is small enough, then we'll be fine. Like, this is promising at the moment. I think I will just keep hitting whatever's directly in front of me. A lot of them are attacking, but they're out of melee range. They're attacking me with the Blades spell, trying to hit me with that. So... Okay. So we cleared a good portion of these. These ones seem to be stuck in a completely different location for some reason. Monsters are weakened and can no longer resurrect. That's convenient. Okay, we're just going to stand here for now. The fireballs can hit us. Oh. These can't consistently get through this door. This is why it takes them so long to leak. Because there's quite a lot of them here. Only one of them actually leaked through here. So we have a regenerating Ifriti Lord. I don't have a particular favorite music style, necessarily. For most of my life, I've gone with the cop-out that I kind of, for the most part, just like good music. But that's not a very, like, informative take, particularly. I would say that generally, like, if I listen to a piece of music, for most genres of music that people really enjoy, that listen to that genre, most of the time I can enjoy it. I have... I'm trying to think if there's any, like styles of music that I really dislike, and I can't think. I've definitely listened to music that people were listening to and not enjoyed it, but it's fairly uncommon. I'm not very like genre focused. I mostly listen to music in video games. I really like instrumental stuff. I would say that I prefer stuff that's mostly instrumental over stuff that has voices in it, because of the fact that, that have English voices in them. Because I have an issue where it's very difficult for me to understand like words. So it takes a lot of mental energy for me to understand lyrics, and so generally speaking, like, if I'm listening to music, I have no idea what the lyrics are. I have to expend a lot of mental energy to know what the lyrics are. So if the music is in a different language where there's no presumption that I'm going to have any idea what this song's lyrics are, that certainly helps with that, because I'm not like trying to understand it. Whereas if it's in English, then I'm trying to understand it, and that can interfere with my listening. But that's not because I dislike the music that has the vocals. It's because of like the associated extra effort involved in trying to understand the music that has vocals, which in theory I don't need to do, and in practice I like a lot of music that has vocals. So yeah, I honestly like most stuff that I listen to. By which I don't mean the stuff that I actively seek out. I mean like the stuff that I just hear day to day. I just like most of it. I don't know that I've ever heard a genre where good versions of that genre, like musicians that are highly respected within the genre and are like emblematic of what that genre does. I don't know that there's too many genres, or any genres for that matter, where I'll listen to music from respected artists and go, not really for me, actually. I think that there were some like there was some really weird shit that one of my cousins listened to in the car once that was like train noises and weird stuff like that I fully did not understand what was going on. And I'm not sure if the music they were listening to was good music within whatever the hell genre that was, or if that was like their friend's band. So I can't judge whatever that was even, right? Where it's like, I don't understand at all what the hell you were trying to accomplish here. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty basic in the sense, I think this is true also with food, where I have like specific issues with a lot of different foods where like a lot of food is like causes problems for me because of probably autism, but there's textural things that are reminiscent of things that autistic people have said are an issue. So it's something adjacent to that space. I don't know that it's autism. There's a lot of things that were in my life where I go, I don't know that it's autism, but I know that it's autism adjacent. Whenever autistic people talk about autism, I'm like, oh, that sounds very familiar, actually. The walking on your like the front of your feet thing, that whole thing, I was like, wait, is that supposed to be an autism thing? Huh. Fancy that. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, you know, I do a lot of stuff that's autism goes. But so like with food, I basically like most food unless it causes a problem for me. And with music, there's not really a ton of stuff that causes like a really big problem for me. So I just like most music, just kind of generally. I don't have a super strong tastes. Like some of my favorite music recently, the Persona soundtrack, the Persona 5 soundtrack is so good. Like acid jazz seems like a pretty cool genre. Not gonna lie, it seems pretty cool. I've listened to a few other acid jazz songs that are not in that, but haven't listened to the whole genre. That seems pretty cool. But like that's the thing, is that I'll listen to a new genre and go, oh, that sounds pretty cool. So let's see. Well, I'm not. The thing is that I don't have an autism diagnosis. I don't want to just go out and say like I have autism. I don't know for sure that autism is the answer there to a lot of these things. It's my guess, but I also have ADHD, That is a known thing. Like, I have classic ADHD, so I don't have anything. I don't want to do any sort of like what is the word? So I don't want to do any stolen valor shit where I'm just like, oh well, it's trendy to say you're autistic. It's like I may or may not be autistic. I'm not, I'm not gonna like say outright that I have autism, but I very likely have some form of it. Don't know the details. I just very much what's the word? When autistic people talk about their autistic things, I go, that sounds familiar. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's a very familiar sounding thing that you're discussing there. Oh, that's interesting. So
it's worthless.
There is a decent chance that would be explanatory. But anyway, but I just don't want to be like. So when I say like, it may or may not be autism, that's why. It's because I don't want to say that I'm autistic without knowing enough to be like, yeah, that's definitely autism. It has nothing to do with being like ashamed of the possibility. You know what I mean? Like it would be like usefully explanatory, which I think is the key to when people think about neurodivergence. It's useful if it has explanatory power that allows you to like think about your relationship with food, your relationship with certain problems that you're having with your life, and go, oh, wait a minute, there's actually a lot of people that have like similar issues with this specific type of thing, and then you can gain knowledge from like the collective understanding of like, oh, people find this to be useful to like help with this specific thing that you thought was just like a unique youism, and it turns out it's like, oh no, there's a bunch of people that have this same, not exact issue, but like the same category of thing where it's like, oh yeah, this is like generally like a what is the word, a sensation issue that a lot of people have that kind of a thing, and then they, have strategies for it and things like that. Because there's also other stuff where it's like there's a lot. It's easy to think of like of like picky eaters, for instance, have it coming from a similar place. But I think there's a very different. But in my experience, a lot of the people that I would consider to be really picky eaters don't seem to be picky based off of any of the actual properties of the food. They seem to be picky based off of like some weird cultural resistance to it, if that makes any sense. Where it's like their squeamishness is tied to it seeming foreign. Like it's like, oh well, this is not a thing that I have a pre-existing like history with, and anything you don't have a history with already just comes off weird, which is a thing that I don't understand like at all. Like I do not understand it conceptually, because like that's just not the way that my brain works. But I'm actually curious if like it's possible that those two types of squeamishness, like the squeamishness against like the actual physical properties of like, you can consistently know that,
Rarities from
when my wife has a thing, like when she eats a thing, she knows what my response will be to it very well, right?
Junk.
Like she has a very solid like gauge of what kinds of things are going to set off problems for me and what kinds of things aren't. And I don't know if that's possible with like quite a few of the people that I know who are like more like the only thing I'll eat is the stuff that I grew up eating kind of people. If that makes any sense. Like I feel like people who will only eat what they grew up eating are like a different category where it's like you have no idea what's going to set this person off when it comes to what their eating preferences is, because it's not based off of the food itself. It's based off of some sort of emotional response to the food, like a vibes thing. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious if there might actually be like an inverse correlation there between those two things because of the fact that it implies a different way of interacting with the food, right? Like your brain is interacting with the food differently in those two cases, and I'm curious if they can really meaningfully coexist. Because if they could coexist, that would be terrible. And I do think that I know someone who they might coexist in, but I'm not actually sure. I would have to learn more about their eating habits, which I'm probably not going to. In order to, Well, yeah, well, the utility of the diagnosis is in, like, comprehending, basically being able to take advantage of the, like, communal understanding of a given thing. And I don't think a diagnosis is the only way to get to that point. I could 100% do sufficient research and talk to enough people that I would trust to, like, I could have conversations with people that are not psychiatrists or psychologists that I feel like would get me to the point where I'd feel comfortable just saying that. I got to that point with ADHD. With ADHD, it did not take long for me to go, oh, okay, well, talking to the shrink about this is a formality, right? Like, we know we know what's happening here, right? We know why this is happening. We know the dynamic here. So I could get to there with autism as well, but. It would be complicated by the fact that it's like, I don't know if it's ever going to be as clear cut as something like ADHD. And again, like the issue with sort of like self-diagnosis from my perspective, I'm as a public person, right? I have a very small audience. I say very small. It's not that, honestly, it's not that small. It's small in internet terms, but like, honestly, like, it's not a small number of people that I am talking to in my day-to-day life. I have people that are listening to me. And if I start describing things that I think are tied to like something like autism that aren't, the issue that I run into there is, at that point, I'll end up contributing to negative information in the space where it's like, this is anti-information. It's not correct. This is not a thing. And if I do that, then basically I'm muddying the waters of like what is the utility of diagnosis and categorization in the first place. Because I don't think that categorization has any inherent value. The value in categorization comes from the ability to use that categorization to share information about how to deal with certain types of problems with people that would find value in learning how to do that, right? So that is a level 253 map. Well, interesting. Interesting. Well, I mean, it's not about. So I would, people should be able to talk about like having, like I don't. There's a lot of spaces in the internet that are very like, friendly to like autistic people, right? Like it's a very stigmatized.
We carry only the finest.
Like neurodivergency, but it's way less stigmatized by young people these days, and young people kind of control the narrative on the internet, right? And so, like, it's interesting that you mentioned like the idea of being like shamed for being autistic, because I'm like, oh man, like part of the reason that I don't want to say that I'm autistic is because I feel like people will think that I'm trying to get like that I'm trying to like get whatchamacallit to be more popular, you know what I mean? Because like that's the kinds of spaces that I run in, where it's like oh yeah, everybody in the spaces I listen to are like autistic, but and but that's again, that's a selection bias, where that's not what the whole internet is. That's just the section of the internet that I pay attention to. Hey, tape drive. Let's see. So we have established that we need to clear another dungeon, right? I think that we didn't get quite enough from the Don Quixote or whatever it is that we turned in. So, Dunduck. So what do we need to do then? Have we cleared Ravage Roaming now? I think so, right? We've done Zogs, we've done the sarcophagus, we've done Thinger. Do we head to Shadowspire next? Is it time to get it started in here? Shall we get it started? I think we maybe get it started in here. I think we go to Shadowspire. If we go to Shadowspire, we're going to get access to a lot of stuff that I want to have access to. And we get access to... Yeah, I think Shadowspire is the way to go. I think that's what I want to do. I think I want to go to Shadowspire. So we're going to TP down to Ravenshore. And probably walk there. Oh, it's Sunday. Okay, before we go, we are going to make another attempt at this thing. I think we're probably just going to get wiped. But we're going to make an attempt because it is Sunday. So we're just going to pop down here. We're going to do level 20 of the arena.
Come on, let's go.
And then next we'll be able to clear Harmondale once we've cleared Shadowspire out. So we have the Acolytes here. After these was what, like Dwarves? Was that the previous thing? I don't even remember. It's terrible. Okay. Let's try this. We are a little bit higher level. I don't think that we'll probably be that much more powerful, but a bit. We're going to take out the Acolytes first rather than take out the top tiers. The top tiers have 2 party members that they can't hurt. So I want to take out the ones that aren't doing light damage. It's probably still not optimal because the priests are probably going to do enough damage to the others that it makes up for the the lower chance of hitting a viable target, if that makes any sense. But it's fine. We seem to be in an okay position here for right now. We've got the boss up behind us. They have a 40% chance of just fully missing. Never mind. That was weird. Is it not doing light damage?
I can't identify that.
Oh, it has a physical attack as well. It can hit you with a stick. Okay. Interesting. So that attack is physical? That is unusual. Because that's clearly a projectile. Why is its projectile
We
physical?
got it.
Okay, so now we have the dwarves. We're going to go up here. No, we're going to go down here.
Yes.
Okay, what level are you? 120. These are very low level.
We got it.
We should... I think we maybe can get all the way to 25 in the near future. I think that the difficulties that we're having are tied to a mixture of suboptimal play and suboptimal build more so than actually being behind the things that we're fighting in terms of power.
Kill me.
Like, whether or not we're fine in a given situation, we should be fine.
Never seen one before. Got him. We got it. Ow. Got him.
That's the boss. It's venomous, which is not a great thing for me, but they are melees.
I require assistance.
Let's get everybody up first.
Kill me.
This is the boss here, right? Yep. We're just basically going to be trying to... I don't know if this person's been envenomed or not, but we have a problem that I can't jump back up now. And I think I'm going to run. Okay, you can remove this. My goal right now is to recover a little bit and get myself into a slightly better position in preparation for the next set. I don't really want to be doing a melee kite here. I'm going to try to burn this down. Okay, we've got 2 people poisoned. We need to get out. All right, we're gonna burn these. Okay, these are hippogriffs. These are melees that fly, which has a few unique properties to it. Flying melees, we can pull up here and then fight downstairs somewhat safely, I think. But we can't do the reverse. I believe that is the dynamic there, where if we're upstairs, the ones downstairs can't hit us. Sorry, if we're upstairs, the ones downstairs will naturally gravitate toward us. But if they're upstairs, and then they won't be able to get down to us because they won't go over the barricade if they're trying to get to down. So we're going to try to get these up here. And then we're going to go right here. We can still be attacked by several of these. That's a boss. So we have a boss that's on us right now. We need to get out of here and get immediately back into position, question mark. The issue is the swift one is just going to keep kicking the shit out of us. And I think we're bound. Okay. Damn. We could probably make that work. But I don't want to spend the entire time here doing those. We've already done some of the arenas. So we're just gonna go onward. And oh right, I wanted to pick up food. So let's pick up food.
Welcome. Your supplies.
And it doesn't matter how much I pick up, because we're not going into a dungeon, we're just going to a thing. We have 50 levels of Might and Magic 8. Alright, let's go. But yeah, I suspect, based off of what I'm looking at, I have a suspicion that we're not going to be that different in terms of final level between this run and the other one. That's my guess, is that it's going to be fairly similar. I think that there was a big jump at the beginning where my level jumped a lot very quickly. But I think things start to normalize later as you start getting ahead of the enemies.
We got it.
Yes.
We will see. I might be wrong. Like, I might be underestimating how much experience there is available later on. What level did I end at, actually? I should have... I think I ended, like, at 320 to 350, right?
Got it.
Somewhere in that line. We're gonna go check our final save. One of the things is that we've actually mostly cleared Might and Magic 8 at this point. So... let's take a look here. We're gonna... yeah, we can save this under test. We can load... first run complete. And we were level 330. With 90 levels gained in Might and Magic 8. And 116 in the other two. So... if we load back to test... we are halfway to the level... we're not quite halfway to the level that we were at the end. And we're fairly close to finishing half the content, I think. Right? Now, obviously, we haven't done a lot of high-level content, and there's a lot of density of areas where we are going to get, like, a lot of quests done. Interesting. So we become a novice in Vampire here. We can get Levitate. Let's see. GM Meditation, which we already have. Master Vampire. Do we want to pick up... we should get Levitate immediately. So let's get Levitate up. Oh, can I get Levitate just... can I just get this to Mastery? I might be able to just get this to Mastery. Yes, because I have multiple other skills that are way higher. Alright, so we have a quest here. I'm not going to touch on that yet. Oh, we can make items here, so that's good. I'll do that here. Okay, we have Master Shield. I never picked up GM Shield, did I? I didn't pick up GM Shield yet, whoops. Is there anything... Master Perception. So there's several quests here. And Portal is the one who's looting these. We're not turning in the quests yet. I'm basically just looking around to see if there's any stuff that I need in terms of other stuff. So there's actually not much reason to do that. Let's just pop onward to start clearing out the rest of the thingers. Let's go deal with the dragons first, because that'll be more fun. The undead dragons over here. This is the place that we found a really cool legendary in our first run. And we could, in theory, have such a thing happen again.
Oh, yes.
Let's see. You know what's going to be really funny? What's going to be really funny... Oh, wait. I just realized something that's actually kind of important. The EXP formula wasn't changed to give lower EXP for low-level creatures until midway through the previous run. So the previous run might have actually had an inflated experience value for the strategy that I was using at the time. That value might actually be inflated somewhat, because the time period that happened was, I think, when I was on my second continent, which means that the really, really low-level stuff that I was fighting at the beginning of the game was giving full experience. That's something that I feel like that matters more in the early game than later, because the relative levels are... There's a bigger difference in relative level early in the game. Whereas once you start getting into the bolstered stuff, it's like, you know, having that base level of 100 means that you're never getting to the point where you have 10 times the level of an enemy, you know? Like, you're not... Like, being level 70 fighting a level 7, or being level 20 fighting a level 2, nothing akin to that relationship happens later on. Unless it's not proportional, unless it's like... unless it's checking, like, the linear difference, which is, like, theoretically possible. Like, where a 20 level difference will result in, like, an EXP penalty or bonus of X amount, depending on whether it's higher or lower. I think... On the plus side, their Mind Blasts that they have are completely useless against most of my party.
Ow! Heal me!
Oh god! You have AoEs.
We got it!
I'm actually just gonna run straight to the... Oh, that's a concern.
Have no fear.
We have a slight issue. I don't want... Man, come on, I thought you so tanky. I don't want to aggro new mobs, but I did aggro some more archers. I'm gonna just rotate around here. I could go retreat to the ocean now. Damn, I didn't get it off in time. But the archers are pretty slow. If I could get... Basically, if I can recover a bit here, I can probably get back into a decent position. But I need to recover in order to make that happen, you know? I need to get high enough that I can take a couple of hits without going down on certain key party members. This is going to start consolidating damage, though, which I don't want right now. Okay, we got one more down. We got another one down. Okay, I think we're golden. Okay, we're gonna dive you. Dive you. The fact that they get just completely confused by the shoreline really helps. The vampires really took a while to get around the shore to where I was. I also completely forgot that I have water walking as long as I have Cortal up, so I ended up completely forgot his arm word. I kept needing to be reminded of it by walking out into the water and going, wait a second, why am I out here? It's like, oh right, because Cortal is maintaining that continuously. Okay. One thing that I think is actually very funny about the way that like music interacts with relaxation is that the music that I find relaxing is very fast, and I did not realize it. And the music that my wife finds relaxing, like for like going to sleep to, is so slow that to me it sounds ominous. It like it literally gives me nightmares. The stuff that my wife listens to, the stuff that she would want to listen to going to sleep is stuff that gives me literal nightmares, and the stuff that I listen to because I find it, you know, able to relax for sleep, she listens to and goes, how do you sleep to this? This is so fucking fast. And I'm like, no it isn't, it's a really slow song. And then I play it on Beat Saber and I'm like, oh actually no, this is actually a pretty fast song. There's actually a lot of beats to this song now that I see your point, actually. I am now, finally, picking up what you were putting down. Concerning. People might also be amused to learn that a friend of mine randomly invited me to play Heroes of Light and Magic 4 with them the other day. By which I mean I think yesterday. Either yesterday or the day before. And it was the day before yesterday. And I did, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was a good time. It was a good time. I realized as I was playing it, like, oh, the Heroes of Might and Magic series is actually pretty similar to, like, Lords of Magic. So I have more experience in this genre than I thought. I didn't make the connection that the two games were very similar to each other. I don't know which one came out first, but they have very similar mechanics in a lot of ways. I didn't really think of that as being a genre. I tend to think of those two games both being like fairly unique unto themselves. And then you play them and you go, oh wait, no, actually there's a lot of connective tissue between. This is like a genre that exists here. Not a thinger. 'Cause, you know, you play games as a kid and just don't think about it that much.
We got it.
Yeah, I get that. I haven't had to deal with that kind of stuff that much as, like, I have, like, a lot of privileges that, like, counteract a lot of the issues that my particular series of neurodivergencies cause. Like, I come from a very gregarious family, so, like, I don't... Like, it's pretty easy for me to sort of, like, integrate into, like, normie spaces. By that I just mean, like, you know, talking to literally any random person. I'm the person who will start up a conversation with a random person on a flight and just be able to, like, have a nice conversation with someone who, like, is not even a person that I like. Where it's like, ah, yes, you have a lot of very strange ideas about how the world is supposed to work. But those kinds of things are very easy for me to navigate, for the most part, despite, social anxieties and things like that. And I'm so antisocial that, like, it's very easy for me to be like, okay, well, I'm only going to interact with people who want to interact with me. I don't need anyone else. I also got very lucky in, like, meeting the most amazing person on Earth when I was 20. So, like, that makes things a lot easier, right? Like, legitimately, my life could have gone down a very different trajectory, even with all the advantages that I have. Just because it's like, no matter how antisocial you are, you have to have some people, right? And the fact that me and my wife see eye to eye on so much stuff in terms of, like, socialization has really helped a lot, because it's like we don't have to interact with any people that we don't both like. And, whereas, like, when you're unable to find, like, that core group of people who are just like, okay, well, I have no reservations about spending time with this core group of people. When you don't have that, then you end up needing to, like, tolerate a lot of behavior that, like, you just shouldn't have to tolerate. So it's very useful to be able to talk about stuff, and it's all chill. It's all chill. Is that a flower? That is a flower. Hey, Malekith. How's it going?
Too easy for me.
Is it? Is it too easy for you? Probably. Yeah, I started like 40 minutes late.
What is it?
The Legendaries part is aspirational. It's aspirational. We haven't found any Legendaries yet. We found quite a few Legendaries yesterday, though, I think. So, like, we're doing good on Legendaries, but we didn't find any today yet. Oh god, unfortunately, my eyes have been acting up the last 2 days. And I'm just realizing that is converting into a migraine, which is not optimal. Let's take a look. What did I find? We found a bunch of stuff that we're not using. So we found this, which will eventually be able to convert into something really useful. We also made a legendary. So we actually made this legendary. So given the fact that that you can only have one instance of a given resistance on an item, I've decided to formulate. Basically, I want to put the most powerful multiplier onto that item, right? Getting extra, like, stats is all well and good, but I can replicate that by having more items with that stat. With resistance, I can't do that. So we basically took an axe that we had, we converted it into the legendary with base enchant increase, and we slapped body and mind resistance onto it, because body and mind resistance are the two resistance types that we don't have access, that we don't need on 3 of the characters who don't use axes. So the axe users are the only people who need these resists. So just slapping this on here seemed like the play. So this item is basically done, except we're going to eventually pump the body and mind resistance element of it, but we don't need to do it yet. That's mostly for when we're increasing legendary. So we're going to be doing... basically, those two were easy. We're going to put the other axe is going to have some other set of 2, and then we're going to have another set of 2 onto the armor. So this character is going to have a 1.8. It's 1.8, right? Yeah, a 1.8 modifier as the minimum modifier for the resists, which I think will be nice. This character is going to have very high energy resist by default, which I think is going to be cool. So that's what we're doing with this. The thing, though, is that I don't know which resists are going to go on here and which are going to go on here, because I would optimally like to choose for my plate to make it be resists that I could potentially copy later if I feel like I have plate that... if I feel like the plate is something that justifies for it. So optimally, I would like to decide based off of what I'm going to do with Sortira's whole jam. So that's what we're going with there. The other thing is that we actually found a legendary dagger. So we worked around this, got this where it needs to be. The advantage of the one-handers is that the one-handers are not uniquely useful for resists, which means that I can just make this long dagger have the stats that I want for now. Like, the stats that I want for right now are perfectly serviceable for late game as well, because the one-handed weapons only have a 1x modifier, right? They have a 1.0 modifier. So for this, like, there's nothing unique about this that means that I have to have specific stats on it. So the luck was already on there, and I think it had intelligence or something that it replaced with the might. So this is going to be like a solid item. Very happy about that. And other than that, I don't know that we did too much other stuff with legendaries yesterday. We tinkered around with a bunch of stuff, but we're basically going to have to figure out the we're going to figure out the resistance situation, and once we've got the resistance situation worked out, in terms of what we're going to do and where, we can do other things. Komanatin conveniently is going to have the same kinds of resists as Quartal, actually, because we have 2 immunities on that character. So that'll be convenient. Let's see. And am I? Yes. I am strong and powerful and able to persevere. I have very unfortunate news, is that I have started late and we might end up ending early. Because I am developing a migraine as we speak, and I would like to stop that. But there's not a lot I can do to stop that. So depending on how debilitating this gets over the next hour, we may or may not go for an entire hour. My hope is to be able to finish this zone and maybe get some inventory work done. I might not be able to do the inventory work, though, actually, because the advantage of this kind of stuff is that I don't actually have to look that closely at the screen. And dual-wielding axes would be very funny on a Lich. Look, here's my question to you. What is a Death Knight, if not a Lich who didn't hit the books hard enough? Think about that. Think about that. Yeah, migraines are just like a fact of life, you know? If you get them, you get them. Also, they might not be migraines. It might be cluster headaches. I don't know. I don't know the details on them, but I'm pretty sure they're migraines just because my sister gets migraines. Though she does also get cluster headaches, so there is that. I think it's migraines.
I can't.
Another one of those like citation needed moments of like, you know, okay, well maybe I'm technically, you know, dealing with something very similar but not quite the same. But I'm fairly certain that it's migraines. I'm fairly certain that it's autism, and I'm fairly certain that it's migraines. We've got a, you know, better than even odds here. Oh man. I think it was very, like, I think one of the saddest, like, missed opportunities in, like, the WoW plot was the decision to make Arthas the dominant mind when they merged the Lich King and Arthas. Like, that to me was a mistake. That should be the moment where,
Have no fear.
as a person, Arthas dies. And it's really unfortunate that they decided to go away from that angle. Because, like, it was kind of like the whole point of Arthas's arc, right? And then they just kind of go, oh, well, Arthas is a really popular character. We can't, like, have him stop existing. And it's just like, come on, man. You know, obviously the Lich King should be the dominant personality here because, like, the Lich King is the one who deliberately merged their consciousnesses and, like, set up... Like, Arthas' fall was set up for the purpose of stealing Arthas' body. It's like the whole thing, the whole arc relies on the inevitable, you know, downfall of this person to the point where they lose being a person at all. And then, like... You know, very sad. It is very sad. Arthas was a bad dude. But yeah, it's unfortunate. It's kind of like how
I don't know.
like it's similar to the dynamic of like the overusage of Pyramid Head in Silent Hill, the overusage of Sephiroth in the whole Final Fantasy VII mythos, things like that, where like, oh, character got popular, so we're just gonna ignore the greater narrative context within which they existed and kind of like undermine that whole deal. Let's see. Is it like a full remake? Like what? I saw the Silent Hill. I saw someone talking about Silent Hill 2 on Twitter, but I don't have any idea what's going on with that. Okay, well, you have negative 42,000 HP. Okay, we are regenning, so eventually those people will get up. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to deal with Olrin being very low for a long time. Them space goats. Yeah, the original Silent Hill team did a really good job. Alright, I think, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go fight some weaker things that aren't going to start insta-giving the person whose like, regen spell is critically important, so that we can get through this. Yeah, I didn't play the Silent Hill games until I was older. I am a scaredy cat, so they scared the crap out of me as a grown adult with like 5, you know, thingamabobbers with 5 friends in the room, but you know. Yeah, I just thought it was a very interesting narrative. I like the weird, like, bizarre, just the whole weirdness of the whole thing is, I think, interesting. It's a very surreal environment. In, at the very least, the first 2 games. I don't remember enough about what the hell was going on in 3. Like, I don't think we got far enough in 3 to really, like, feel it as strongly. I think, like, in part because, like, I don't think when we played 3 we ever got to Silent Hill. So since we didn't get to Silent Hill, like, it had, like, that... Oh, wait, no, we did. We did eventually get to Silent Hill. No, we got most of the way through that game. We might have actually finished that. I don't know if we finished that or if we didn't finish it because, like, we had just cleared a difficult boss fight and then never got around to finishing the last bits. I don't know which of those 2 world states is the one. But I actually did finish most of 3. I remember it being a little less surreal. Still pretty surreal.
Got it.
I never played any of the King's Quest games. I don't think.
Tis but a scratch.
Let's see. Let's see. See. Playing King's Quest is what King's Quest is like is an adventure game, right? Like a point and click adventure game. Is that correct? Or is it a totally different genre and I'm just completely like? Because I think I might be mixing up with A Bard's Tale in my head, even though they're very different names, right? But, like, that doesn't mean anything.
I've never seen one before.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of game recommendations in the last couple days. It's been very amusing. At some point in the near future, and I don't know when I'm going to do this, but this is something that is on my mind. It's been on my mind for a while. At some point in the near future, by which I mean sometime in the next 10 years probably, I will... I think I'm going to try out, like, games that I have never touched a series that's, like, a super famous, like, big series. And just go into them as blind as I can. And I'm going to focus on like the series that I don't know anything about, despite the fact that it makes no sense that I don't know anything about them. I was talking to someone yesterday about the Digimon series and how Digimon is like adjacent to all of the stuff that I, have a lot of knowledge about. Not all the stuff, but like I have a lot of adjacency to Digimon. In the sense that, like, there's a lot of stuff that's like Digimon that I enjoy, that I've played. Like, I played Jade Cocoon, right? And so you would think that I would know a lot about Digimon. I know nothing about Digimon, right? Like, I know almost nothing about it. Like, I could recognize... Someone sent a picture of, like, basically what they described as the Pikachu of Digimon. And I recognized it, but I didn't recognize it as coming from Digimon. Right? So, like, that's the degree of, like, lack of awareness that I have. Is like, yeah, is that from, like, that game I played a billion years ago? Was it called, like, Monster Seed or something? It was, like... some sort of like monster hunting game where you go out into the world. It's similar to Jade Cocoon actually in concept, I think. And I don't know if that's the name of the title. Like, and it was a very tiny game, I think. So if you Google Monster Seed, you might not get the thing that I'm talking about. You might get something very different. So beware. Maybe put it in incognito mode. Search it. I don't know. It seems like the kind of thing that they might have made very different types of games out of since then. But like I played a lot of those kinds of games as a kid, but I still play like Pokemon and stuff periodically. But I've also been disappointed in Pokemon for like 20 years. For like 20 years, I've had enough investment in Pokemon to be disappointed in the fact that, like, they have the aesthetic of a cute, like, befriend animals game. Like, that's the aesthetic of Pokemon, is, like, cute, and, you have these, like, cute Pokemon, and you can play with them, and blah, 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 blah. But every generation, they remove all of the friendship mechanics that existed in the previous generation and just keep leaning in hard on the, like, cockfighting element that is, like, the most troublesome element of Pokemon, right? Where it's like, oh, yes, I have this cute little, lizard thing, and it's like, oh, now I'm going to have it try to murder a dragon. And it's going to get hit with an incinerate attack that's super effective. And, oh, they fainted. And it's like, I don't think that thing fainted. I think it got incinerated. I think it got incinerated. But, like, they have, like, fun, like, cute nonsense. Like, they had some, like, play thing at one point where you could get the Pokemon to do, like, they would do, like, plays or something, like, performances on a stage, and they had that for exactly one game. And then they had another mechanic where you could, like, pet them and do other things and, like, feed them and play little mini games with them and stuff like that. And they had that for one game. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, just keep adding these things. Don't remove them every generation. Don't remove them. Just add to them so that people can actually do stuff with their Pokemon that isn't like, okay, what I'd like you to do is become the best trainer there ever was. How did you do that? By murdering the fuck out of every Pokemon you see. Oh, excuse you. I have great news. My migraine is receding. I have very, very good news. See, I also want to be the very best. I want to have the very best Pokemon Drama Club, who are amazing on the stage and do their best. That's what I want. I want to dominate the theater space. I actually didn't like enjoy that mechanic that much. That particular thing, I wasn't super into it. But it doesn't matter. I still want it to exist, right? I want it to stay in the game. I want to keep adding to these things because it's like the non-combat mechanics, I think, lean into the aesthetic of what Pokemon like is in every other media, right? And the whole cockfighting element is like the thing that's the least Pokemon element of Pokemon. To be clear, like the actual like combat gameplay of Pokemon is pretty good. Like it's a pretty good strategic game that has some like interesting decisions and things like that. It's not bad. It's like good at that. I just don't like the desync there. It's kind of like how I get really anxious when I play Overcooked. I can't like play Overcooked because it stresses me out. Because there's a desync between the really cutesy like the cutesy elements that it has, which is like all of the aesthetic. The aesthetic is all very cutesy. And then the extremely like, okay, you have exactly 30 seconds to do this thing, and you have like, you know, this thing's on fire, and like it's this super stressful game in this very cute package, and it's like, why is it this? Why don't make it cute or make it stressful? Don't make it both. Don't make it both. Don't make it both. Oh man. See, like, I like barotrauma, which is very stressful in theory, but which I can relax to because it's high intensity, like, very high stakes action going on moment to moment. And the aesthetics and the theming and everything match that really well. So to me, it's like, yes, I am here to die horribly over and over again in a submarine, and that's what I'm here for. I'm with you. I have no stress about this. This is great. We have a catastrophic failure of everything. This is chill. We can recover from this. Do we have a submarine, or do we have a couple of vaguely tied together strips of metal? These are philosophical questions that I do not have the answer to. How many portions of the hull need to stop existing before we no longer meaningfully have a submarine? These are the questions we're here to answer. It's very fun. I was really enjoying it. I'm very happy that over time they add thingers. Whatchamacallits? They've added some accessibility tools, I think, over time, because like it caused all sorts of problems for me. When I first started playing, it just made me kind of feel sick, right? And the thing that's interesting is I'm not even sure how much of the stuff that was making me feel sick was actually motion sickness, because I have very severe motion sickness. I just don't have it with video games almost ever, but I get very severely motion sick in a car or a plane or a bus or in anything. But so I don't know how much of it was that being interacted with in a weird way, and how much of it was actually claustrophobia. Because I know that I have mild claustrophobia. I don't have severe claustrophobia, but I do have mild claustrophobia. And there's only been a few cases where I've been constrained enough to realize, like, oh, no, wait, no, this is a problem, actually. Though it does explain a few other quirks that I have, I suppose. Oh my god, yeah, you have an AoE Venom. Ooh, baby, that is unfortunate for me. You're just gonna keep spamming that, aren't you? Ooh, boy. Ooh, that is a concern. I think we're dead.
Have no
I
fear.
don't think we can survive this, because the Venom's gonna kill Commoditon, right? Nope. Commoditon survived the Venom. So, hypothetically, if I could get myself to a position where they're locked in, I could be okay. We have water walking for some reason. Right. We're gonna have to reload. But yeah, that venomous thing took me by surprise. Let's just clear this one out. This pair out. I don't think we'll have too much difficulty here, but it's going to be a little bit of an issue. We're going to need to basically get ourselves to a position where it can't hurt us, I think. Let's see. So what we're going to try to do... These have a roughly melee range on Spirit Lash. This is probably too high. However, can I get you to come to here? Can I get you on one of these roofs and not on the higher one? Or can I just hit you from here? I don't think I can hit you from here, right? I might be able to hit you from the other side of this thing. No, this is too tall. I think I'll slide off of this. Yeah, I think I slide off of that. So let's go back to fly. Alright, get some good sleep, Alketh. Let's see. I'm not sure how effectively we can get you to where I want you to be. We might have to just use a standard corner play here rather than try to use this like an actual roof. The other thing is we could potentially bring this into town. I'm not sure if there's anybody in town that's actually hostile to these. Let's find out. I'm gonna save. Never mind, I'm not gonna save. We're just gonna drag it into town. Because if it's not hostile to the townspeople, then I can just fight it on top of one of these roofs. I don't need to fight it on this roof. I don't think that there's any chance that I'm fighting an AoE Venom mob that's this high level. This is level 171. The Spirit Lashes are just going to kill me. I don't think I have an answer to Spirit Lash. It does too much damage, and it does it in an AoE, and it triggers the Venom that is a huge issue. So there's no way that I'm going to like brute force this. We could potentially do like hit and run tactics, but it's actually very difficult because it's very fast moving. So like I think it's faster than me. Either way, we can just clear this out. Nailed it. Got a belt here. Let's see. Is it 8:30 a.m. of the next day? Has it been 26 hours? Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah. That's the 9th of October here too.
No match.
Let's see, 8:30. That'd be 4 hours west, right? So that would be like Eastern Europe, the Eastern Europe, like Africa, maybe. I actually don't know much about the time zones across like Asia and Europe at all.
We got it.
Like I don't know what any of the surrounding time zones look like, other than I think Japan is 1 hour ahead of me. Georgia, gotcha. I guess I'm +8.
Oh, yes.
I'm gonna be honest, I only have a vague idea of where it goes. When I was regularly doing the map thing, I knew exactly where basically every country on Earth is, as well as a bunch of distinct territories that are like not sovereign, but are relevant as a different like category, so to speak. So I think I think I did that version of the map. That's like 400 some. Unfortunately, that version of the map has a lot of like a lot of random like island chains that have 40 people on them, which is harder to deal with. But I have a vague idea of which one it is. Let's see. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to the east of Singapore, honestly. Like the other thing is that like not all countries separate, they like subdivide within their country. Like China doesn't have multiple time zones,
It is but a scratch.
even though it's like such a wide country.
Ow.
It doesn't have multiple time zones because the government's weird. So they just don't have multiple time zones. Which, like, I could see a world where people go toward, like, just there being a time of day, and, like, people just, like, associate different expectations of what that means depending on area.
But a scratch.
But I don't think that would ever really work. But anyway, like, I think that China, like, crosses, like, 3 time zones, but doesn't actually have 3 time zones within it or something. Like, if you look at what its neighbors to the north and south have as their time zones, they desync considerably. And I think that their time zone is not based off of, like, the middle of China, but is actually based off of, like, the coast. Like, the east coast of the country. Because that's where all the cities are. Let's see. Time is Merkin. Of course, there's like 5 Merkin time zones. Actually, no, there's like 10, right? Because I think there's 4 continental times. Oh, there might be more like 12. I think there's 4 continental ones. Alaska's probably in a different time zone from the rest of the continent, and then Hawaii is almost certainly in a different time zone from all the others. So that's 6. But then they also do daylight savings. So you have variants for each of those time zones. So that would be like 12 time zones. Wild. It's a lot of time zones. Daylight savings, by the way, is not a thing that we should be doing. Daylight savings is a bad idea. It's such a pain in the ass for like no benefit at all. It's for like zero benefit. But let's see here. I think it is though. I think there might be more. There might be more than that in terms of America, because I don't know like American Seychelles and like all of the other territories. Like Puerto Rico is just south of like the continental states. So Puerto Rico probably just fits into the standard model, the standard like continental model. It's not you don't need like a new time zone for Puerto Rico. But like all of like the Pacific colonies all need their own time zones because they're so far away from each other as well as everything else. Unless does America have like a just like Pacific colony time where they just like take all of their colonies and just average out their like time zone to one time zone?
Can someone...
I don't actually know.
I'm wounded.
Yeah, if you're in a place that doesn't like arbitrarily change what time of day it is,
No fear.
periodically, it can be very difficult to tell like what time it is in America without just looking it up. Because half the year you have one relationship to a time zone, and then they change the time zone for the other so like it'll just change to a new time zone basically. It's kind of a mess. Because, like, if you look up, you know, oh, what is the time in, like, EST, right? Well, EST isn't what the time is half the time. Half the time is EDT, which is Eastern Daylight Time. So, like, EST is standard, D is daylight. So, like, you can't even, like, use the acronyms for it, because there is no acronym for just, like, what time is it right now on the East Coast. Oh, we are in trouble. We might be able to get out of this, but I think we might be dead. Oh, come on, come on. I need you to hit something. God damn it. Hit it, hit it!
Nope.
Nope.
I don't know.
Okay, we got the hit off at least. You're in such deep shit. How low are you? If we can get Severia up, we might be okay. We're not getting Ulrin back up. What?
I'm badly hurt. Help me.
I think we might be boned here. We can't leave.
Help me.
Oh, that's concerning.
Ow.
Luckily, when it moved in, it didn't, you know, move anything else. We're so low on the one other character. There's no shot. There's no shot that this works. Kamanaton, are you strong?
I'm badly
Are you strong enough to handle this on your own? I don't
but a scratch.
know how the answer might be yes. How are you soloing this? Kamanaton, your HP just reached the green. How is this happening? Okay, if we kill this vampire, we only have a couple of little ones blocking us from leaving. Oh my goodness. We might actually be able to leave right now.
Ow. Help me.
How is it that we have one less enemy hitting us, and yet we're taking more damage? Excuse you. Excuse you. Rude. Okay. How low are you? Okay. Severia's almost up too. If Severia ticks up and starts tagging these things, we might be able to lifesteal our way back up a considerable distance. This Greater Vampire is getting low, which is funny because I'm not even trying to hit it, but I'm going to start trying to hit it because I think that we can handle the other two. If the Greater Vampire gets in range to hit me, I might be in deep shit. And it just started running away, so I don't know. God damn it. One lifesteal is not enough. Oh, we got the... Oh shit! Let's go! Severia! Making it happen! Okay. Nobody's in range. Nobody's in range. We have regen. If Sortira gets up, we can't pick up Ulrin immediately, but... Look at Ulrin's HP! If Sortira gets up, then we can get Sortira up to a decent HP value, and then this Greater Vampire should be toast.
No match for me.
Holy shit. We're in the green. We are in the green. Kamanaton, you beautiful bastard. Beautiful, beautiful bastard. I think what type of damage does Spirit Lash do now? Because I think that it's doing a damage type that they're immune to. I don't think it's doing the like untyped damage or spirit damage that it used to do in vanilla. Because I don't even know if spirit damage existed in 8. It's also possible that that was just misinformation and it never did spirit damage. It always did mind damage or something weird like that. I don't even know. you know? Dictator for Life Komanaton doesn't not describe Komanaton. You know, like, say that, like, Komanaton, you know, being the ruler of a nation is kind of very on brand, actually. Let's see. I find Komanaton very fun. Oh, jeez, that's way more than I want to be attacking me while one of my characters is already unconscious and I can't fly away. Okay, this is gonna go fine. You know, it turns out that the migraine isn't going to be the thing that stops me from finishing here. The thing that's going to stop me from finishing here is Ulrich being at negative 70,000 HP. We're not going to be able to clear this out in time because we're not strong enough to do it quick. We could do it. I think with Fly we could get some very fast strats in here, but without Fly we really are limited in terms of the way that we can move these enemies around the map. So, like, having to approach from, like, this exact angle is not the optimal for getting good results. I think this is either top or second to top tier. I think this is top tier. I hope that... Okay, damn. That's fine, though. They're probably not that low. I just realized that I can't pick them up anyway with shared life because this character's so fucking low you are. We're getting there, okay? We've cleared a tiny portion of the distance between where we started and where we're going. We've gone from negative 70,000 to negative 45,000. We're like almost kind of close to halfway there if you squint at it. If you squint at it. Are you drunk? No, you're insane. Oh, jeez. Okay, we pulled an entirely extra group. Well, that's a problem. Wasn't paying enough attention. Life is sad.
Have no fear.
Everybody's pretty healthy except for, obviously, Holman. So they'll get back up in a timely manner. We can shared life once Komanaton's about to cap out. And then, unfortunately, I'm now realizing that we do have enough to actually do that twice. Cool. We're starting to get to a better position with our ability to cast our spells. I'm going to eventually be making Sortira more of a spellcaster than they currently are. Maybe. And I also might not ever do that. I might do something completely different. We'll see. We will see. But regardless, we've got that done. Definitely sleeping it off. We've got. Hey, look. We're at negative 30,000 now. That's not that low. We're getting close to the point where if everybody else is at full HP, we can zero them all out to 1 hit point and pick up our sleeping minotaur. Let's see. You aren't moving very well. I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to ignore you for now. I'm going to go somewhere else instead. And I think... no, not quite there. Which HP do I have? About 20,000 to play with. So... it'll be a little while yet, but it's not that far away. I'm going to basically putter around right here because I feel like there's a lot of places around here that I could potentially get some work done. I'm assuming that they're all going to be coming toward me. They can fly, so they should be coming over these things at some point. Unless they just rotate really far away from me. Ooh, which... that might be the default for a lot of these. So we've presumably moved them a lot. Let's find out what we can do if we just leave. We're now in the green. So we've moved this dragon to here. Got another dragon there. What are we doing? Negative 600, negative 14. We should have enough. That's not the right character. There we go. Whew! Okay, everybody's up. But for how long? Well, that's another question entirely. But I don't think that any of the dragons are going to hit me with AoEs. I think the vampires AoE and these don't. So it shouldn't be... we shouldn't be able to get as bad a situation as we had just now. I'm gonna try to just dive here, because this thing is moving. God damn it. Rotate it off of the bridge, and I need it to be on the bridge to loot it. I can now see where the enemies are moving around here. So I could potentially... that's interesting. So this is not going up. Excuse you? How dare. And... so we don't want to fight them there, because in the spot that they're... oh, I can fly. I can fly now. Interesting. Okay, so that influences things a bit. It looks like I'm not getting close enough to fight this summoner with what I'm doing over here. So let's... now that we can fly, we can do some more dangerous stuff. We can fly, and we can actually see what enemies are fighting us at any given time. So we're just going to walk into this. There we go. I love the ability to do that. That's such a fun mechanic in Might and Magic, by the way, is if your fly goes away, or you jump at an enemy, being able to just hold yourself up with their body and just pummel them is a very, like, iconic dragon fighting thing to do. Like, it's very iconic for, like, you know, action fantasy to be like, okay, well, I have this flying creature. Can I, like, jump on a chandelier, make a, you know, acrobatics check to get from the chandelier to the dragon's back, and then just start stabbing it in the back repeatedly until it dies? Yes? Great. I'm gonna do that. That's what I want to do. I love it. Let's see. Yeah, Might and Magic 6, I think, had a lot of stuff that was built off of, like pictures of real people. Let's see. The Satisfic portraits are definitely something else. Hey kid, you want to be famous? And by famous, I mean have your picture in a video game?
That wasn't so bad.
You're gonna be great. You're gonna be a star, baby. And imagine being like actually like thinking about it, like imagine just being like walking through the street or whatever, right? And then you just like see a person and they just like really remind you of someone that you've seen before. And then you realize you've seen like just a portrait of them in Might and Magic 6. It's like, wait a second. Wait, did they just take a picture of you in Ren Fair clothing and then like add like the models for the armor onto you? Are you the person who shit? Are you the person who are you human too? Is that who you are? I've only been to the Ren Fair once. I went with a person I was dating at the time. And I had a good time, but I didn't really... Like, I didn't really get it. I'm not a very, like, I'm not that style of nerd necessarily. Like I think that the sort of like the action stuff. I think that something like LARP might interest me. I think that might be fun. But I feel like a more like just like sort of like immersion without like a clear. A more clear structure to it is something that it just doesn't appeal to me as much. I'm pretty sure that if as an adult someone brought me to like a Ren Fair type thing, I would like because I'm thinking about like the kinds of people that I have as friends. I feel like the kinds of people that I have as friends now would have no difficulty figuring out what thing about the Ren Fair is the thing to hook me onto it, if that makes any sense. Because I think when you're a teenager and you're trying to share things that you're interested in with other people, even people that you're close to, like there's a lack of like emotional maturity to be able to be like, this is the thing. I know the hook to latch this person and to get the right headspace, to get them to understand fundamentally what it is that I get out of this thing. Or to say, okay, they're not going to get the same thing out of this that I get out of it, but they will get this other thing, right? That's a thing that I think we get better at later. And not everybody's going to get better at that. Obviously, that's a thing that you practice, and which some practice is good and some practice is bad, where it's like, it's fairly easy to practice something like that in a way where, like, if you're in the wrong, like, cultural space, people will respond in suboptimal ways, not because of reasons that, like, you can really adjust for, but because of, like, other weird stuff. Like, going back to the people who dislike a food because they've never had it before versus people who dislike a food because this, like, things that have these particular types of ingredients or textures to them or whatever are consistently causing a problem, right? Those are two different things. And the issue is that if you're trying to share things with someone who is sort of like has a reactionarily negative response to it, where they don't, they're not like giving it a fair shake, even if they don't realize that they're not giving it a fair shake, right? Because they're approaching it from the perspective of, how can I turn this Renaissance fair into a book club? Like, as a random example, right? Like, how can I make Ren Fair be book club? Because I like book club, and all things must be book club. And that's not like a way to like approach, you know, new stuff that I think is terribly helpful. It is 12:59. Do we feel... I have multiple bosses, one of which is a summoner in play. I haven't found a good solution. Yeah, everybody has their own unique types of interests, to be sure. Like, and I do think that there's an element of, like, we tend to associate certain things as being more similar than they actually are. Like, I think the association of people who like video games and people who like Ren fairs is not a strong association, actually. I think that's a fairly minor one. Because it's like people who like Ren fairs, I feel like have more theater kid energy, right? Like, theater kid, like, I'm going to enjoy being dramatic with these other people, and we're going to have this great time, and blah, 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 right? Like, the like sketch comedy scene, theater kid scene, they have a lot of similarities in terms of that kind of a vibe, which only some nerds are, right? And there's, well, that's the thing. It's like, I feel like when, you know, a lot of the people in here were young, there was this association between all these different things that these days it's like, wait a minute, like, this person, like, it was like considered unusual, for example, that like one of the nerdiest, like, you know, gamer slash like Pokemon Legends in my high school was on the wrestling team, right? Like, and that's normal, actually. That's very normal. Like, if you've ever seen anything in the tabletop role playing space, Abria Iyengar is like the ultimate embodiment of the very, very close association between the kinds of things that like are cool and interesting about jock culture, like exercise, athletics, that kind of stuff, and like gaming spaces, right? Abria is both of those things, both very jock and very nerd, in a way that I think is very interesting, right? And but it wasn't until fairly recently that the people who were like that were considered to be like, oh yes, this is the normal and expected relationship between these two things, as opposed to like, oh, this is like a unique unicorn who likes both, you know, min-maxing their carbo loads or whatever. I don't know any terminology from that space. Like min-maxing their, what is the word? Macros? Is it macros? Like, the word macros is even used in both spaces. Now, obviously, macros means a very different thing in the context of an automated, you know, series of commands versus like your like macronutritional information or whatever it is. But like, I do think that it wasn't until fairly recent. You know? Like, it was fairly recent that people realized that, like, oh yeah, these are very similar interests in terms of what kind of how easy it is to develop a special interest in this particular thing. Okay. I thought I had launched myself in there, but I clearly did not. I should probably try to get this on the ground. We should get the ads cleared. It is over time, but time isn't real unless you look at the clock. So let's just stop looking at the clock and time isn't real. I should probably stop once we kill this other though, because I did have a migraine coming on. It's still there. It's just gone from a 1 to a 0. Which sounds like that means that I don't have a migraine, but that's not what that means, unfortunately. So I should not push it too hard, but we're going to try to kill this skeletal dragon just because I want to. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's important in life to have things that you can geek out about. And if you geek out about the same thing for 30 years, that's great. And if you geek out about a different thing every 2 or 3 months and have some new project that you're deep diving into, that's also great. And like, but regardless of, you know, how often you change what your, you know, interest
No
is,
match for me.
I think that normalizing the idea that people will be passionate about things is very good, and I feel like there's been a very strong push toward normalizing being passionate. Because when I was growing up, we had a very like irony poisoned society where like it wasn't considered cool to care about anything. And that is cringe, because caring about things is good, actually. You know? It's good to care about things. That's my take, is you should care. Yeah, I don't even know that it's like even like a... I could see the argument that that's like fundamentally kind of like a reactionary position, but it's like it's almost like not even. It's just a position that I find strange. Okay, so it's 105. Do we want? I'm tempted to not identify this stuff until the beginning of next stream, because we are actually over time, and actually no, we should identify this after stream, because dicking around in my inventory is something where I have to do a lot of reading. Part of the reason that I've been skipping reading some of like the longer messages, I know people have been talking about some stuff that's more in-depth, and I have not responded to most of that. I haven't read most of the messages that are more than like 2 lines in my chat, because if I read it, then it's going to make my headache worse. So that's why I haven't been responding to any of the because I think people were talking about modding and game development and stuff like that, and I just couldn't read it, because it was like, okay, this is an in-depth conversation that I'd love to be involved in, can't be involved in right now. Similarly, I would love to identify all this stuff. We're going to wait until tomorrow to identify it, because I have a headache. So thank you for watching. It has been an absolute pleasure to stream for you today, and I hope to see you all again tomorrow. Wednesday? Yep. I know what day of the week it is. Tomorrow, when we'll be doing the last bits of this, we'll be turning in a ton of quests. We will be doing some promotions that may or not be relevant. We will be maybe getting some new skills, because I just realized that I didn't actually do all the skill things. We'll just be doing a lot of stuff tomorrow. And I'll see you then. Later, folks.